Sarah Martinez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she walked down the dusty firing range for the 100th time that morning. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills while she finished her nursing degree. Every few minutes, the range master would call "cease fire," and she would jog out to reset the paper targets, replace the torn ones, and mark the hits with bright orange stickers. The morning sun beat down on the military training facility outside San Diego. Sarah had been working there for 8 months, and the routine had become second nature. Walk out during cease fire, check targets, replace what needed replacing, jog back behind the firing line. The soldiers barely noticed her anymore, which was fine by Sarah. She preferred to keep her head down and do her work. Today felt different, though. A new group had arrived for advanced marksmanship training. These weren't regular soldiers. Sarah could tell by the way they carried themselves, the quiet confidence in their movements, and the serious expressions on their faces. Their instructor was a tall man with graying temples and intense blue eyes. She had overheard someone call him Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez. As Sarah bent down to replace a target at the 300-yard line, she noticed something odd. While most shooters had scattered holes across their targets, one particular shooting position had created nearly identical groupings. 5 shots clustered so tightly together that they could be covered by a quarter. She had seen good shooting before, but this was exceptional. "Impressive, isn't it?" a voice said behind her. Sarah turned to find Chief Rodriguez standing a few feet away, his arms crossed as he studied the target she was examining. "Yes, sir," she replied quietly. "Whoever shot this has incredible skill." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. I've been watching you work out here for weeks. You move differently than most civilians. You're aware of your surroundings, you check your corners when you enter new areas, and you never turn your back to the firing line. Most importantly, you don't flinch when weapons discharge nearby." Sarah felt her cheeks redden slightly. She had hoped her background wasn't obvious. Her father had been a police officer who had taught her basic firearms safety and situational awareness from a young age. After his death in the line of duty when she was 16, she had continued practicing at local ranges, finding comfort in the precision and discipline required for accurate shooting. "I notice things," Rodriguez continued. "And I notice you've been studying these targets more closely than someone who just resets them needs to. You understand what you're looking at." Sarah shifted uncomfortably. "My father was law enforcement. He taught me some basics before he passed." "I'm sorry for your loss," Rodriguez said genuinely. "What kind of basics?" "Safety protocols, breathing techniques, sight alignment. Nothing fancy." Sarah downplayed her knowledge, but Rodriguez's expression suggested he wasn't convinced. The range master's whistle blew, signaling the end of the morning session. As the shooters began clearing and securing their weapons, Rodriguez made an unexpected offer. "We're having an equipment demonstration this afternoon. New rifle systems, advanced optics. Would you be interested in observing? You might learn something useful." Sarah hesitated. She was supposed to finish target maintenance and head to her evening nursing classes, but something in Rodriguez's tone suggested this wasn't a casual invitation. "I suppose I could stay for a little while," she said. "Good, meet me at range 7 at 1400 hours. And Sarah," Rodriguez paused as he turned to leave, "bring your notebook. I have a feeling you'll want to take notes." As Sarah watched the chief walk away, she couldn't shake the feeling that her simple job as a target resetter was about to become much more complicated. She had spent months blending into the background, invisible to the elite soldiers who trained here. Now, somehow, she had caught the attention of one of their instructors. That afternoon couldn't come fast enough. Sarah found herself checking the clock repeatedly as she mechanically went through her remaining tasks. She had always been curious about advanced marksmanship techniques, but had never imagined she might have the opportunity to learn from military professionals. When lunch break arrived, Sarah sat alone in the shade of an equipment shed, eating her sandwich and wondering what she had gotten herself into. The smart thing would be to politely decline and stick to her original plan. Focus on nursing school, keep her head down, avoid complications. But as she watched the SEAL team members preparing their gear for the afternoon session, Sarah felt a familiar stirring of interest. These were people who had turned precision shooting into an art form. They were the absolute best at what they did. And for reasons she couldn't quite understand, one of them had noticed her. Sarah finished her sandwich and made her decision. Whatever Chief Rodriguez had planned for this afternoon, she was going to be there. Her father had always told her that opportunities to learn from the best don't come along often. This might be her only chance to see what she was really capable of. Walsh finished her next shot group with the cooled barrel, and sure enough, the impacts moved significantly closer to center. The vertical stringing had disappeared completely, confirming Sarah's analysis. "Outstanding call, Martinez," Walsh said, securing her weapon. "Chief, I think our observer just earned herself a chance behind the scope." Rodriguez gestured for Sarah to approach the firing position. "We'll start with a simpler setup. This rifle is zeroed for 300 yards and will begin there before attempting longer distances." Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she approached the shooting mat. She had shot rifles before, but never anything this advanced, and certainly never with elite military operators watching her every move. "First things first," Rodriguez said, kneeling beside her. "Show me your natural shooting position. Don't think about what you think we want to see. Just get comfortable behind the rifle." Sarah positioned herself on the mat, trying to remember everything her father and the Marine range master had taught her. She adjusted her body angle to create natural bone support, settled the rifle into her shoulder, and found a comfortable cheek weld against the stock. "Good," Walsh observed. "Your body position is solid, natural bone support, consistent stock placement. Someone taught you well." Rodriguez made a few minor adjustments to Sarah's position, then had her look through the scope. The target at 300 yards appeared enormous through the powerful optics, the bull's clearly defined despite the distance. "The scope is already zeroed, so your point of aim should match your point of impact," Rodriguez explained. "Take your time, focus on your breathing, and send one shot when you're ready." Sarah settled behind the rifle, her world narrowing to the view through the scope. She could feel her heartbeat, hear the slight breeze rustling the grass around the range. Everything her father had taught her about breathing and trigger control came flooding back. She took a deep breath, exhaled halfway, and let the crosshairs settle naturally on the center of the target. Her finger found the trigger, and she applied steady rearward pressure just as the Marine had taught her years ago. The rifle fired with a sharp crack, the recoil pushing against her shoulder. Through the scope, she saw a small hole appear in the target, slightly right of center but well within the scoring rings. "First shot hit," Walsh called out through her spotting scope. "About 1 inch right of center, not bad for a first try at this distance." Sarah felt a rush of excitement mixed with nervousness. She had actually hit the target at 300 yards with a rifle she had never fired before. "How did that feel?" Rodriguez asked. "The trigger was lighter than I expected, but the rifle feels very stable. The recoil was manageable." "Good, the light trigger takes some adjustment. Try another shot, but this time make a small windage correction to move your impact left." Sarah studied the target through the scope again. She remembered watching Walsh make adjustments earlier and tried to apply the same principles. She made a tiny adjustment to her point of aim and fired again. This shot struck almost exactly in the center of the bullseye. "Dead center hit," Walsh announced, her voice carrying a note of surprise. "That was excellent shooting, Martinez." Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "Natural ability. You can't teach that kind of instinctive understanding of sight picture and trigger control." Sarah fired 3 more shots under Rodriguez's guidance, each one striking within a tight group near the center of the target. With each shot, she felt more confident and comfortable with the rifle. "All right," Rodriguez said after her 5th shot. "Ready for a real challenge." Before Sarah could ask what he meant, Walsh was setting up a fresh target at a much more distant position. "How far is that?" Sarah asked. 500 yards, Rodriguez replied. "The scope adjustments become more critical at this distance. Elevation changes, wind becomes a factor, and small errors in shooting fundamentals get magnified significantly." Sarah felt her stomach flutter. 500 yards was more than double any distance she had ever attempted. Through the scope, the new target looked impossibly small. "I don't know if I'm ready for that," she admitted. "That's exactly when you should try," Walsh said, rejoining them. "When you think you can't do something is usually when you discover what you're actually capable of." Rodriguez showed Sarah how to make elevation adjustments on the scope, explaining how many clicks would compensate for bullet drop at the increased distance. He also pointed out wind flags positioned along the range that would help her read wind direction and strength. The fundamentals don't change, he assured her. Body position, sight picture, breathing, trigger control. The rifle will do its job if you do yours. Sarah settled behind the rifle again, this time taking extra care with her position and scope adjustment. The target at 500 yards was barely visible without magnification, but through the scope, she could make out the scoring rings clearly. She took several deep breaths, studying the wind flags and trying to judge how the breeze might affect her shot. The Marine had taught her to read wind, but she had never applied those lessons at such a long distance. "Take your time," Rodriguez said quietly. "There's no pressure here. This is about learning what you're capable of." Sarah found her natural respiratory pause, let the crosshairs settle on the target center, and carefully pressed the trigger. The rifle fired, and she watched through the scope as a small puff of dust appeared just behind the target. "Miss, but close," Walsh called out. "About 6 inches low. Your elevation was almost perfect, but you needed just a touch more up adjustment." Sarah felt disappointed, but Rodriguez seemed pleased. "That was an excellent first attempt at 500 yards. The miss was minimal, and more importantly, you made a clean shot. No flinching, no jerking the trigger. Try again with a slight elevation increase." Sarah made the adjustment Rodriguez suggested and fired again. This time, she saw the paper target jump slightly as the bullet struck home. "Hit," Walsh announced. "Good shot, Martinez. You just made a 500-yard shot on your second attempt." Sarah couldn't believe what she had accomplished. An hour ago, she had been resetting targets. Now she was making successful shots at distances she had only dreamed about. "How do you feel about trying 700 yards?" Rodriguez asked with a slight smile. Sarah looked at him in amazement. "Are you serious?" Rodriguez was completely serious about the 700-yard shot. Sarah watched in fascination as Walsh positioned a fresh target at what seemed like an impossible distance. Without the spotting scope, she could barely see the target frame, let alone the actual scoring area. "At this distance, everything matters," Rodriguez explained as he helped Sarah adjust the scope's elevation turret. "Wind reading becomes critical. A slight breeze that wouldn't affect a shot at 300 yards can push your bullet several inches off target at 700. Sarah studied the wind flags positioned along the range. The breeze was gentle but inconsistent, shifting slightly from left to right every few seconds. The Marine had taught her that reading wind was part science and part art, requiring careful observation and intuitive feel. "The wind is variable," she observed, "mostly from the left, but it's switching back and forth." "Good eye," Walsh said, settling beside her with the spotting scope. "What's your plan for dealing with that?" Sarah considered the question. Wait for a lull in the wind or try to time the shot during a consistent wind pattern. Exactly right. Wind reading is one of the most challenging aspects of long-range shooting. Some days the conditions are perfect, other days you have to work with what nature gives you. Sarah positioned herself behind the rifle, taking extra care with her shooting position. At this distance, any small error in her body alignment or sight picture would be magnified significantly. She adjusted her bipod legs to ensure the rifle was perfectly level, then settled into her shooting position. Through the scope, the target looked incredibly small. Even with maximum magnification, the bullseye appeared to be only slightly larger than the crosshairs themselves. Sarah felt a moment of doubt about whether she could even see her point of aim clearly enough to take an accurate shot. "Trust your equipment and trust your fundamentals," Rodriguez said quietly. "The scope is properly zeroed, the rifle is capable of precision at this distance, and you've already demonstrated you have the skills needed." Sarah spent several minutes studying the target and monitoring the wind flags. She wanted to understand the pattern before attempting her shot. After watching carefully, she noticed the wind seemed to calm down every 30 seconds or so, creating brief windows of more stable conditions. "I think I see a pattern in the wind," she said. "Show me," Walsh replied. Sarah waited, watching the flags. Sure enough, the breeze died down to almost nothing for about 10 seconds before picking up again. "There," she said as the flags went limp. "Every half minute or so." "Perfect, use that window for your shot." Sarah prepared herself, controlling her breathing and finding her natural shooting position. When the next calm period arrived, she took her shot. The rifle cracked, and Sarah watched through the scope as a small cloud of dust appeared near the target. She couldn't tell if she had hit or missed. "Close miss," Walsh called out. "Maybe 2 inches right of center. Outstanding shooting, Martinez. That was a very difficult shot." Sarah felt a mixture of disappointment and pride. She had come incredibly close to hitting a target at 700 yards, farther than she had ever imagined possible. "The miss was minimal," Rodriguez assured her. "At that distance, a tiny error in wind reading or sight alignment can cause a miss. The important thing is that your shot was well placed and showed excellent fundamental shooting skills." "Can I try once more?" Sarah asked. "Absolutely. What adjustment do you think you need to make?" Sarah considered the shot. The bullet had struck slightly right, which suggested she hadn't compensated enough for the wind coming from the left. "I need to aim a little more into the wind," she said. "Correct, make a small adjustment and try again." Sarah waited for the next calm period in the wind, made a slight adjustment to her point of aim, and fired again. This time, she saw the target paper move slightly as the bullet struck. "Hit," Walsh announced excitedly. "Dead center hit at 700 yards. That's exceptional shooting for anyone, let alone someone attempting it for the first time." Sarah couldn't believe what she had accomplished. She had just successfully engaged a target at 700 yards with a rifle she had never used before this afternoon. "How do you feel?" Rodriguez asked. "Amazed," Sarah replied honestly. "I had no idea I was capable of shooting like this." "Neither did I, to be completely honest," Rodriguez admitted. "But I've learned to recognize natural talent when I see it. You have excellent fundamentals, good instincts for reading conditions, and most importantly, you remain calm under pressure." Walsh secured her spotting scope and joined them. "Rodriguez, I think we need to talk about this." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. "I mean," Walsh said, "that what you just demonstrated isn't normal. Most people require weeks or months of training to achieve what you just did in one afternoon. Rodriguez, you know what I'm thinking." Rodriguez nodded slowly. "I'm thinking the same thing. Martinez, how would you feel about some additional training opportunities?" "What kind of opportunities?" Sarah asked cautiously. "Advanced marksmanship training, real instruction from military professionals, the kind of training that could open doors you might not have considered." Sarah's mind raced. She was supposed to focus on nursing school, finish her degree, and start a stable career. But what Rodriguez was suggesting sounded like something far beyond her original plans. "I don't understand what you're offering," she said. "We're not offering anything yet," Rodriguez clarified. "But we'd like to explore what you might be capable of with proper training. Are you interested in finding out?" Sarah looked across the range at the targets she had just engaged successfully. A few hours ago, she had been invisible, just another civilian worker in the background. Now, elite military operators were suggesting she had capabilities worth developing. "Yes," she said without hesitation, "I'm very interested." 3 weeks later, Sarah found herself reporting to the base at 5:30 hours for what Rodriguez had described as preliminary evaluation training. She had rearranged her nursing school schedule to accommodate the early morning sessions, telling her professors she had picked up additional work hours. The training began with fundamentals she thought she already knew, but Rodriguez and Walsh showed her how much deeper precision shooting actually went. They taught her about ballistic coefficients, atmospheric conditions, and advanced wind reading techniques that made her previous knowledge seem elementary. "Shooting accurately once or twice can be luck," Walsh explained as they worked through dry fire exercises. "Shooting accurately consistently under various conditions requires understanding the science behind what you're doing." Sarah absorbed the information eagerly. She learned how temperature and humidity affected bullet flight paths, how to read mirage through a scope to determine wind conditions, and how to make rapid calculations for shots at unknown distances. The physical conditioning surprised her most. She had assumed precision shooting was primarily a mental skill, but Rodriguez insisted that physical fitness was equally important. "A sniper might have to carry 60 pounds of equipment for miles, then make a precision shot while their heart is still racing from exertion," he explained during one particularly challenging morning run. "Your body has to be trained to perform under stress." After 2 weeks of morning training, Rodriguez approached her with a more serious proposition. "Martinez, I've been in contact with some people who are interested in your progress. There's a specialized training program that accepts civilians with exceptional aptitude for precision shooting. It's challenging, but graduates often find opportunities in law enforcement, federal agencies, or private security. Sarah felt her heart racing. What kind of program? It's run jointly by several agencies. FBI, DEA, Secret Service, and some military units contribute instructors. They're looking for people with your combination of natural ability and teachability. What would that mean for my nursing degree? The program is 6 months long. You could defer your nursing program, complete this training, and then decide what direction you want your career to take. Sarah sat quietly, processing the implications. 6 months ago, she had been focused on becoming a nurse, following a safe and predictable career path. Now she was being offered training that could lead to opportunities she had never considered. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course, but I need an answer within a week. The next class starts in 3 weeks." That evening, Sarah visited the cemetery where her father was buried. She often came here when facing important decisions, finding comfort in talking through her thoughts near his grave. "I don't know what to do, Dad," she said aloud, placing fresh flowers on his headstone. "This opportunity is amazing, but it's so different from what we planned." As she sat in the gathering dusk, Sarah remembered conversations with her father about following unexpected opportunities. He had always encouraged her to stay open to possibilities, even when they led away from familiar paths. Her phone buzzed with a text message from her nursing school advisor, reminding her about upcoming registration deadlines. The normal path was still available, still safe, still predictable. But normal had never felt quite right since her father's death. She had chosen nursing partly because it felt safe, but also because she couldn't imagine what else she might do with her life. Now she could imagine something different. The next morning, Sarah arrived at the range early and found Rodriguez preparing equipment for their session. "I've made my decision," she announced. Rodriguez looked up from the rifle case he was organizing. "And I want to try the specialized program. I need to know what I'm capable of." Rodriguez smiled. "I hoped you'd say that. There's just one more evaluation you need to pass." "What kind of evaluation?" "A practical assessment. Real-world scenario simulation. Nothing dangerous, but it will test everything you've learned about precision shooting under pressure." Sarah felt nervous but excited. "When?" "This afternoon. There will be observers from the training program. Your performance today will determine whether you're accepted." The rest of the morning session focused on review and preparation. Walsh worked with Sarah on breathing techniques for stress management, while Rodriguez helped her practice rapid range estimation and wind reading. "Remember," Walsh said as they finished the morning training, "you've already proven you have the skills. Today is about demonstrating you can apply them under pressure." That afternoon, Sarah met the evaluation team. 2 men in civilian clothes introduced themselves as instructors from the specialized program. They were polite but serious, taking detailed notes as Rodriguez briefed them on Sarah's progress. The evaluation scenario was complex. Sarah would have to engage multiple targets at varying distances, with different wind conditions at each position, while observers timed her performance and scored her accuracy. "You'll move through 4 shooting positions," one of the evaluators explained. "Each position presents different challenges. Take your time, but remember that speed matters as much as accuracy in real-world applications." Sarah approached the first position, a 400-yard shot with a moderate crosswind. She settled behind the rifle, read the wind conditions, and engaged the target successfully on her first shot. The second position was more challenging, a 600-yard shot from an awkward shooting angle with variable wind conditions. Sarah took extra time to study the wind flags before taking her shot. Another hit. The third position tested her ability to engage multiple targets rapidly. 3 targets at different distances, requiring quick scope adjustments and rapid target acquisition. Sarah worked through the sequence methodically, achieving hits on all 3 targets. The final position was the most difficult, a 800-yard shot in gusty wind conditions, with a time limit of 2 minutes from arrival at the position to shot fired. Sarah had never attempted a shot this long, but she applied everything Rodriguez and Walsh had taught her. She read the wind pattern, made her scope adjustments, and found her shooting position quickly. With 30 seconds remaining on the timer, she fired. Through the spotting scope, one of the evaluators announced, "Hit, center ring." Sarah had passed the evaluation with outstanding scores on all positions. "Miss Martinez," one of the evaluators said as they completed their scoring, "welcome to the program. Training begins in 3 weeks." 6 months later, Sarah stood on the graduation platform of the Federal Precision Shooting Academy, wearing the crisp dress uniform she had earned through the most challenging training of her life. The program had pushed her beyond every limit she thought she had, testing not just her shooting skills but her mental resilience, physical endurance, and ability to perform under extreme pressure. The academy had been everything Rodriguez had promised and more. Sarah had learned advanced techniques she never knew existed, shooting from helicopters, engaging targets in complete darkness using night vision and thermal scopes, and making precision shots while wearing full protective gear that restricted movement and visibility. She had also discovered capabilities within herself that went far beyond marksmanship. The instructors had recognized her analytical mind and attention to detail, leading to additional training in intelligence analysis and surveillance techniques. Sarah Martinez, the academy director announced as she stepped forward to receive her graduation certificate. Distinguished Graduate, Academic Excellence Award, and recipient of the Director's Award for Exceptional Performance Under Pressure. As Sarah accepted her certificates, she spotted Rodriguez and Walsh in the audience, both wearing proud smiles. They had continued mentoring her throughout the program, even when their official duties took them elsewhere. After the ceremony, Sarah was approached by representatives from 3 different federal agencies, each offering positions that would utilize her newly developed skills. The FBI wanted her for their counterterrorism surveillance teams. The Secret Service offered a position in their Protective Intelligence Division. The DEA proposed assignment to their long-range reconnaissance units. "Quite a change from resetting targets," Rodriguez said as he joined her outside the academy building. "I still can't believe how much has changed," Sarah replied. "A year ago, I was invisible on that firing range. Now I have agencies competing for my services." "You were never invisible," Walsh corrected, joining the conversation. "Rodriguez spotted your potential immediately. The question now is what you want to do with it." Sarah had spent considerable time during her training thinking about that exact question. The specialized skills she had developed opened doors to exciting and meaningful careers, but they also came with serious responsibilities. "I've made my decision," Sarah announced. "I'm accepting the FBI position, but with a specific request." "What kind of request?" Rodriguez asked. "I want to spend part of my time helping develop training programs for other people like me. Civilians with potential who might never get the chance to discover what they're capable of." Rodriguez and Walsh exchanged glances. "That's exactly the kind of thinking that made us believe in you from the beginning," Rodriguez said. 3 months into her FBI career, Sarah found herself back at the military training facility where her journey had begun, but this time as an instructor rather than a target resetter. She was developing a pilot program to identify and train civilians with exceptional marksmanship potential. The program would screen candidates from various backgrounds: military veterans transitioning to civilian careers, law enforcement officers seeking specialized training, and civilians like herself who showed natural aptitude but lacked formal instruction. "The key," Sarah explained to a group of academy instructors, "is recognizing that potential can exist in unexpected places. Someone who appears to be just doing a simple job might actually possess extraordinary capabilities waiting to be discovered." Her first group of trainees included a security guard who had never fired a rifle, a college student studying engineering, and a mechanic who had learned basic shooting from her grandfather. Sarah saw something familiar in each of them, the same hunger to learn and improve that had driven her own development. "Your backgrounds don't matter," Sarah told the trainees on their first day. "What matters is your willingness to push beyond what you think you're capable of." As she watched her students tackle their first precision shooting challenges, Sarah reflected on the unexpected path her life had taken. She had started as someone content to stay in the background, invisible and safe. Now she was helping others discover their own hidden potential. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Rodriguez. "Saw the news report about your program. Your father would be proud of what you've become." Sarah smiled, remembering the conversation at her father's grave when she had agonized over the decision to enter the academy. He had always told her that opportunities to discover your true potential don't come along often, and that when they do, you have to have the courage to seize them. As she watched one of her trainees achieve their first successful shot at 500 yards, Sarah realized that her journey was far from over. Each person she helped discover their capabilities created ripple effects, opening new possibilities and changing lives in ways that might never be fully known. The shy woman who had once thought she was only good for resetting targets had become someone who helped others aim for targets they had never imagined reaching. And in the end, that transformation had made all the difference. 6 months after starting her training program, Sarah received a call from the academy director. Her pilot program had been so successful that it was being expanded nationally, with Sarah appointed as the director of civilian recruitment and training. As she drove to the base that morning, Sarah passed the cemetery where her father was buried. She made a mental note to visit him soon, to tell him about the latest developments, and to thank him once again for teaching her that sometimes the most important discoveries happen when someone places something new in your hands and asks you to see what you can do with it. Her father had placed basic shooting skills in her hands years ago. Rodriguez had placed an advanced rifle in her hands that afternoon on the range. Each time, she had discovered she was capable of far more than she had imagined. Now it was her turn to place opportunities in other people's hands, to help them discover what they might become when someone believes in their potential. The circle was complete, but the story was just beginning.